Easy music.
Chad Dillon now sits third as Dominic is going slowly. Chad Dillon, a replica of the previous race, now sits in P2. Chad Dillon.
Name Chad Dillon, age many years, 31 of them to be exact.
Purchase your tracks today.
Driver number is one of the two numbers, 13 or 23, depending on if I am lucky enough to get 23, if not it is 13. I have been sim racing competitively for about a year-ish, year and change. Been around sim rigs for a little while. I think the first wheel for many years. I think I was like 07, I was on PS2, I was on Logitech. I don't remember what Logitechs they were making at that point.
Easy music.
But yeah, never really took it seriously. It was just for funsies at that point in time. Got a more recent wheel, a Logitech G920 back in 2021. That's where I kind of got started. F1 was the game of choice at the time, and then eventually, thanks to El Presidente, got involved on the PC scene for the Olympic, the World Championship qualifiers, my apologies, back in 2022, early 2022. So yeah.
Purchase your tracks today.
Favorite form of motorsport has to be Formula One. I've been following Formula One since 2007, Lewis Hamilton's first season. Yes, that is my driver. For all of you haters out there, leave the GOAT alone. Yes, but I have been following Formula One heavily since the start of Lewis Hamilton's career, and that is, where my love of motorsport comes from. And yeah.
Easy music.
Yeah, I am involved in the management, stewarding, commentary, whatever role is required really. I try to help and fill it where necessary. Because the goal here is to see this platform grow to a point where, we know what the international scene looks like. The international scene is booming right now. So if we can grow to a point where we are able to compete on that scene and be actually, in the realm of the top drivers on that scene, that'd be magnificent. But in order to get there, we have to develop the talent that we have here.
Car right in front of you, he's closing in. He is in striking distance as Dominic Charles crosses the line to finish 23 laps in first position. I don't think Mark is going to have enough run on Chad. Coming across the line, Chad Dillon takes P2. Followed by
My thoughts on that are two parts. Like everything else in life, there's the yin and the yang, bad and the good. The bad is where I will start the numbers. We could have had a lot more drivers. We had 12 drivers sign up, 7 drivers race consistently. That tells you all you need to know. Another 5 drivers that could have been part of this competition, but either don't take it seriously or don't see the benefit in doing it. And I understand we come from a culture where the stigma is gaming is waste of time and kind of idle fun as opposed to any kind of serious competition. But the world is changing, and I think part of the problem is Jamaica's slowness to adapting to the world as the world changes. kind of sets us back in our venture. That's the bad. The good was some brilliant racing took place all throughout that series. I saw people that this was their first competitive series come in and do extremely well. Shouts out Jaden Harrison, took second place. I wouldn't say he's a rookie, but still relatively young in the sim racing game, and showed brilliant talent, and his progress even through the series was shown. Kurt Moss is Kurt Moss. That is an alien of the highest order. The US just gave a press release on him as the extraterrestrial biological units that they were interacting with. But I digress. Overall, we were provided with great racing action, and it's just such a shame that we didn't have the numbers to showcase the entirety of our talents available here. Me personally, I don't think I have the pace to have long-term goals. From a management perspective, we definitely want to, again, grow this platform in the Jamaican community, see the drivers that do have the talent excel in the future, and to continue to develop even younger drivers that are just now getting their start in the sim racing scene, to kind of push that competition onwards, because it's growing and it's growing fast, and there is money out there to be made in sim racing. There is opportunities out there for people in sim racing, and some of the talent does translate into real world racing and real world driving. So the continued development overall is the main goal, and if in the process I find little talent and can get a little bigger, anywhere I can compete, I will be competing.
Purchase your tracks today.
I mean, here we are at the Jsra once again, a growing business venture, trying to establish a market here in Jamaica, develop talents, take it internationally. And we've seen remarkable growth in the year that we've existed. We now have strong bonds with Panama, Venezuela, Dominican Republic. We have personnel trying to break us out into the European and Asian markets. So the growth is coming, and I am very happy to be along for the ride.
Good job.
Purchase your tracks today.
If you're talking about maternal and dive bombs, like maternal and dive bombs are just what they are. It really brings out
Easy music.
as you can, Dominic.
As they both come out side by side.
Oh no.
And that is the end.
That's it?
That
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We want to thank you for joining us here on another Chase of a Saturday. My apologies if that echo was heard. Just momentary confusion there. Yes, we are here on another Saturday with our new multi-class series here at the JSRA. And in this series, you have two classes of drivers. Some in a Mitsubishi Lancer, that is the quicker of the two cars on offer, and the others in a BMW M2, which is the second class of drivers. The main class might be a little bit quicker as they are the drivers that posted the necessary times to qualify for this event. But we'll get more into that later as I did not complete my introduction. My name is Chad Dillon and this is the JSRA stream, and I am joined by Mr. Cale Vane Roper.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the introduction, Chad. So you are joining us just as free practice has come to a close. Drivers have had all week to complete their mandatory 25 laps. For those who had not done their qualifying race the last time out in Jerez. As Chad mentioned, this is a multi-class series, meaning that we're going to be seeing two different cars on the grid. Now going into qualifying, we'll have a 20-minute qualifying session before the 40-minute race plus one lap. So, and you mentioned, Chad, that the Lancer is the faster of the two cars on offer. Funnily enough, in the speed traps, the M2 CS is actually putting down faster top speeds.
Yes, absolutely. So, it is the faster car in a straight line, but around a track like this, that won't really matter. This is the Virginia International Raceway, the North track. And we have 14 corners over a, 3 kilometers?
3.6 kilometers.
There we go. Thank you very much.
And our diehard fans would have immediately recognized this track from its appearance on the Peak Performance calendar. I believe it was one of the very first races that we had in that series around Virginia International Raceway. So
absolutely.
Some of the drivers will have had some experience here already.
Certainly, but not with these cars. And I mean, this is a shortened version to the version that Cale has mentioned. We did use the full track in that series, but this is the North course, which is a shortened version, 14 corners, 3.6 kilometers, as we mentioned, and certainly will lend itself to some brilliant racing. I can see two good opportunities for overtaking coming out of turn 5. Yeah, that's turn 5 there, coming out of turn 5, and the run after the 12-13 complex all the way down to start finish. So two good opportunities for drivers to try and make their moves. And another point to note with a track like this one, Cale, the elevation change. My goodness.
And funnily enough, the track seems quite smooth and flowing, but the drivers actually putting in the seat time here around this track are going to be experiencing some challenges. These cars don't have much downforce, if any at all, so they're purely relying on mechanical grip to carry them through some of these corners. And the elevation changes, especially in the second half of this track, it's definitely gonna throw some drivers off if they didn't put in enough practice.
Absolutely.
But the slow nature, because as I said, there's only a couple of obvious overtaking points at this track, seeing as though we're using the North Circuit, which is a shortened version. So it's quite slow. Drivers don't get much of a chance to just, relax and hold the steering wheel straight. So we're going to see the pack, stay quite close and tight together. I think we're going to see a lot of close battling out here tonight at VIR.
Absolutely. And a few changes to the start procedure for those who would have tuned in last week. We did see where some of the faster class drivers got held up in the pack of the BMWs because those drivers refused to yield their position in the course of battle. But the start procedure has changed. The faster class will go at the outage of the 6 red lights, and there will be a 15-second timer that will set off the second class of drivers. So that should keep the two classes separate, and it is about 3 seconds a lap difference between these two sets of cars. So certainly one to look forward to. We will get 2 sets of battles going on track, and it will be quite taxing to keep an eye on both, Kale, here this evening. I mean, it's going to be action up and down the field, so we have to keep our eyes and ears everywhere as best we can.
Action is the perfect word, and seeing as though this race is not as short as we usually have, this is a 40-minute race plus 1 lap, so we may even see some blue flags being waved here and there towards the latter stages of the race, as the Lancer class drivers in the pro class will be, lapping a lot faster than the pro-am drivers. So we'll see how that shakes things up a bit. But as you're there, as you're mentioning with regards to the overtaking and even the start procedure, we will be adopting the same protocols used in multi-class endurance racing, where blue flags will be shown, but drivers are to allow the faster class car to overtake them at the safest point. So we don't expect to be seeing a faster class driver trying to overtake in the middle of, say, corner 11, where it's very twisted there. That would just be, a big risk. But we do know that in the moments, in the heat of battle,
correct.
That goes out the window. But this the series is all about exposing the pro-am drivers to the proper racing etiquette that we expect the pro drivers to be exhibiting. So we will definitely be looking out for that, as Kurt Moss here on his flying lap, 14 minutes left in qualifying, is the fastest man in the first sector.
Absolutely, and I'm sure we'll see those times come down. I recall seeing times a little bit lower earlier in the day. No, actually, we're about on pace to what was seen in the earlier stages, as the second class Roger Robinson leads them on a 1:29.7, which that I believe might come down a little bit to be closer to maybe a 1:29.0. So we will continue to observe those drivers, and quite an active grid we have here this evening, Kale. We have 17 drivers currently out on track, with one more to be added to the list, and I see the cameraman's curse playing a role there as we switch to the drivers, and all of a sudden incidents are taking place. So yes, we have 17 drivers out, 18 when Davil Park joins the field, and we have 6 drivers currently in the pro class and a whopping 10 drivers in the pro-am class. So certainly the pro-am class one to watch in terms of the action that they will be bringing us here this evening, as Roger Robinson does bring that time right down. His last lap, a 1:28.9, so even faster than I had anticipated at that point in time, and the 3-second difference showing, so almost to the T at that point. These drivers extracting the most out of these cars. Go ahead, Kale.
Yes, Roger Robinson, or Jamaican abroad, racing from Singapore, I believe. It's an international affair tonight, as we even have drivers representing Venezuela, in person of Estefano Barrera. We have Luis Daniel Velez, and I believe a newcomer. Where is he? Sebastian Percy as well, out here representing Sim Racing Venezuela. Glad to be working with them again in another series here in Chase for Pace. So we expect to see a bit of international rivalry here tonight at VIR, as we're moving through qualifying, just 12 minutes left. Yes, Chad.
Absolutely, and as you mentioned, Sebastian Percy, I believe he has just joined the room, not yet having done a flyer, so you will see him out on track momentarily, and I expect him to be right up at the top there with Roger Robinson, as he did show quite some pace earlier on. Another newcomer there in Alex Jarrett, right hot on the heels of Roger Robinson. He also showed some brilliant pace in the practice sessions, so another one to watch throughout the course of that race. And as we are observing the Pro-Am class, Mark Anthony Eaton has found himself up in second position behind Kurt Moss, who is still on provisional pole, just 12 hundredths of a second between these two drivers. So certainly, and that's 12 thousandths, my apologies, but yes, certainly one to watch. Yeah, and those margins might get even closer. I know some of these drivers, like one Jaden Harrison, is looking to find the pace anywhere he can, so look for him to make a push. Estefano Barrera not that far off the pace either. The top four all within 0.2 of a second, looking like the Formula One quota qualifying earlier today, where the top four was separated by about a tenth. And I'm sorry if that is a spoiler to anybody at this point. Never thought that through.
Fortunately, that was one of the sprints, right? But tonight will be the real thing. So if anyone doesn't want any spoilers, make sure you tell your friends to tune into the stream before you ruin it for them after the race, because it's anyone's race here tonight. We have
Kurt
seen
Moss
them
has gone faster, Kale, by about 0.3 of a second, putting the rest of the field on the back foot, trying to match his pace here this evening. And once again,
Mark Anthony does match him in the middle sector.
Absolutely.
Perfectly, as a matter of fact.
Yep, but a 10th down in sector 1, so we will see if he can find some time there in the final sector to get that much closer to Kurt Moss, as he is approaching the line here.
Might have gotten a bit of slipstream there from a driver who he has just overtaken, and that did help him to improve in the third sector, but only by 5 thousandths of a second. Only a tenth, not even a tenth and a half of Kurt Moss. It's, I mean, it was 12 thousandths of a second earlier. Now it's a 10 times as much time, but still the margins are so fine. The top three now separated by, or the top four still separated by just over half a second. And down in the AM class, Roger Robinson still sitting on provisional pole for his class, having set a 128.9, and only barely 3 tenths behind him is Alex Jarrett at 129.2. So it is still very close there, even down in the AM class. Drivers are very close together now in terms of their times.
Absolutely, and late comer Mitchen Wallace trying to find his best lap time to put himself into the contention of his class. So as we are on board with him here, as he is going through sector 2, with 3.5 tenths down in sector 1 on Kurt Moss's time, and almost matching him there in the middle sector. So certainly Mitchen Wallace looking to put himself firmly in the mix with the top drivers in his respective class. And as we are approaching, that's turned 13 into 14 there. No, sorry, that's 13 heading down to 14 and the line. We will see where he has managed to put himself, Mitchen Wallace, and he goes to 4th position behind Estefano Barrera, but not by much. So fine margins indeed here, Kale, this evening. All drivers currently chasing down Kurt Moss with about 7.5 minutes to go here in this qualifying session.
And let's not only focus on the Pro-Am class. There's a lot going on down in the 10th, 11th, and 12th position here. Marlon Smith battling it out here with Ruben Espinosa for that 11th position. That's 11th position on the grid, but I believe that's 1, 2, 3. That's
third position
for the
in
top
class.
third position in class. So it's very competitive here, especially in the AM class. It's a lot closer racing because drivers don't have that advantage of aero. When you have that aero to assist you when you're driving, some drivers will trust that the car will stick through the corner because of the aero, and others won't. And that's one area where drivers like Jaden Harrison and Kurt must definitely take advantage of their cars in that regard. But in the AM class here, it's just rubber and road, and it's who can who can take advantage of the grip that the four tires will allow you to have here around the smooth flowing VIR North circuits.
Definitely, and this is one of those cliche moments where in a qualifying session like this one, the saying is fortune favors the brave, so you will certainly see who is bravest on their brakes here this evening to get the maximum out of the car's performance. Certainly nobody looking to be on any kind of push lap at the moment looking down the timing chart. Maybe Rahul Nazir looks to be going along quite well. Might have been on an invalidated lap though, as he was up on his best time, but not by much, not enough to trouble the guys at the top. So certainly this order looking to be quite established, but Roger Robinson 3/10 clear of Alex Jarrett. Maybe Alex might have a little bit more in the tank to take that fight to Roger. All the while, Havar Clark down there in 4th position in class. That's 4th? Nope, that is certainly a lot further down the order. My apologies. But yes, yeah, no, it's 6th. Yeah, well, it's gonna be a lot to keep up with, Kale. That is for certain. I'm trying, but my goodness, there's so much on offer as Jaden Harrison puts himself ahead of Estefano Barrera, just 3/10 off of Kurt Moss's time. And Kurt Moss has yet to replicate that lap, so you will certainly see what else he has to offer. And at the moment,
going to be showing us in a short period of time. Mr. Massive himself has come out of the pits and is now warming those tires up on an outlap to see if he can best himself and ward off the likes of Mark Anthony and Jaden, who will be hot on his heels to snatch that pole position. We have less than 5 minutes left in this qualifying session, and a lot of the drivers in the AM class are actually in the pits. Alex Jarrett and Roger Robinson still out on track trying to secure their spot on the starting grid. Marlon Smith, who is 3rd in class at the moment, is in the pits. I think he just exited the pits. Pablo Granadillo still sitting in the pits, comfortable with 4th position so far. Ruben Espinosa is sitting in 5th position in class, but is still setting a time out there. He's even currently up on his best time, so we'll see if he does improve. Tavar Clark in 6th now, having set a personal best for himself in the 1st sector, but with a 129.8, not able to quite match Ruben in 5th, and Rahul Nasir still pushing the very quick Canadian. We'll see if he can move himself up the order here. And I'd just like to point out, I don't think I've seen any blockages, any impediments in this qualifying session, which is quite a rare occurrence.
Certainly not any that we've caught here on tape, but I'm looking at Sebastian Persis seemed to be going very well on his lap. He was about a second and change up on his best time, and looks like he might be one such driver to witness that blocking effect, as you mentioned, Cale.
It looks as though he's the one doing the blocking. Unfortunate for the driver behind him. That's Davil Park, I believe, behind him. Seeing what the back of his very own BMW M2 CS looks like. A bit of racing here might be going on in the qualifying session.
Absolutely, I guess the driver's trying to jockey for a position on their final runs.
Yep, just over 2 minutes left in this qualifying session before our first multi-class race here at VIR gets underway, and things are looking to be quite heated going into that first corner. Kurt Moss having set another lap time is not quite matching up to his personal best of a 125.5, his class leading 125.5 on medium tires. And speaking of tires, Chad, the it must be noted that setup the setup is open for the drivers in the Pro-Am class. They can tweak their air or their tire pressures and their dampers. They're able to make adjustments to their setup. But in the Am class, it is a fixed setup. Also, there's no mandatory pit stop for this race. However, damage is on, and the fuel usage and tire deg are fuel usage is at 100% and tire deg is at 150%. So depending on how drivers will be pushing to maximize their chances for positions and possibly even winning, we may see them start to include some strategy during the race, as now we're moving down to the final minute of qualifying. Let's see if Jaden Harrison
has
move
found
himself
some
up.
time in the first two sectors, not quickest of all, but has certainly improved upon his times. And as he crosses the line, it looks like he may have invalidated somewhere. So despite the fact that he was going quicker on that lap, it did not count. And that lap was, I'm not seeing where it registered on my timing sheet, but it would have moved him up a little bit, but not enough to trouble the top two. So Jaden Harrison still with some work to do throughout the next couple of corners, as this should be most drivers' final flying laps. And I am wondering what's going on with Kurt Moss. He has gone back to the pits, it seems, comfortable enough that he is gonna be on pole. None of these drivers improving. Mark Anthony Eaton will have one more go at trying to match Moss, but he looks to be in some traffic here at the moment, and that certainly is not the place you want to be. That driver being very kind in letting him through, because if that driver was on a flying lap, I certainly would not want to be getting out of the way. But Jaden Harrison has found some time here, and that is the end of that. How very unfortunate. And it seems he has disconnected, so I'm not sure if that's a power issue that just occurred with Jaden. And that looked like it could have been a lap to upset the apple cart, so to speak, but we're not sure what's going on. Maybe he lost power or internet, and either way, slice that is rather unfortunate. Let's hope he can get reconnected in time for the race.
A disaster there for Jaden Harrison, having set the fastest middle sector so far, beating out even Kurt Moss's 19 seconds in the middle sector. What could have been for Jaden Harrison, but it's all set in stone now for the Pro-Am class. Kurt Moss, who is still in the pits, Mark Anthony Eaton in the pits, Estefano Barrera is the only one still out there in the Pro-Am class, still setting a lap time. But your man starting on pole position for the Pro-Am class will be Kurt Moss, and demonstrating his aptitude behind the steering wheel as usual.
Absolutely, and for the AM class, Roger Robinson was able to hold on and maintain his pole position, followed by Alex Jarrett, and those two drivers will certainly be doing battle on track to try and see who can come out on top. We do look forward to seeing how our new starting system will work out, in terms of starting the two classes on a delayed schedule, as El Presidente is using the drone to marksmanship standards here, trying to give us a view of the track, zooming into one of the few drivers still out on track. That looks to be Stephen Pommels, and
taking absolutely every single advantage to hone your skills in on the track, even if it may be one last lap. Stephen Pommels there, identifying where it's slippery, as he seems to have lost the rear end there going around corner 3. But it was quite I must admit, Chad, that was quite a quiet qualifying session there, the driver set 1 or 2 laps, and it was a status quo that was just maintained for the rest of the qualifying session. I don't expect to see anything quite like this during the race,
Oh,
as of
certainly
course there will be action on the grid. You cannot have a multi-class race without some action, whether it be blue flags or drivers battling for position. Especially seeing as though this will be a high stakes track. You know, it's just grass on either side of the white lines, so it's definitely going to be who is the braver of the two when it comes to battling here at VIR. One mistake and that's it. But qualifying has come to an end here, and the drivers will be sitting there, you know, making their adjustments from their qualifying setups to their race setups, you know, adjusting their fuel, the tire pressures. Maybe they have to adjust their suspension to in accordance to the added weight of the fuel. I believe the M2 class is starting all on the same tire, it being a locked setup. So we're just going to see who will have the faster getaway at race start.
Absolutely, and certainly it'll be something to watch, particularly for we will have 15 seconds to observe what happens at the start for the Pro-Am class, as they will get going first, and then we will certainly get to check in on what's happening with the AM class thereafter, as we are trying to get a view of the starting grid, and we will observe the start from the drone camera for that class. And as we get going, remember the BMW drivers will not set off until we have reached 15 seconds into this race, so we will be following along with the AM class, the top 8 drivers on the grid. Kurt Moss starting from first position with Mark Anthony Eaton alongside him as the lights are coming on. Jaden Harrison seems to have gotten back into the servo and is now sitting in third position once more with Estefano Barrera alongside him. As we are getting going, the lights are out and we are off. Kurt Moss with a good getaway, Eaton with a good getaway, and cuts across immediately to cover off Jaden Harrison. And as we are going along through the first corner, and there's some contact there between Jaden Harrison and that looked to be Mitch and Wallace. Ouch. That was some heavy contact there between those two drivers.
As we see the countdown on the server for the beginning of this race for the AM class, the M2 BMW drivers are going to be getting away. They may tangle here with Michelle Wallace coming into the first corner. We can hear them barreling down into the first corner.
There they are in the background.
It's Roger Robinson keeping the lead in his class. Davil Park moves up a position. Alex Jarrett falling down the order. A bit of contact there between Ty Ventura and Roger Robinson, but he still manages to keep it going. Marlon Smith now moving up into second position, getting that position from Davil Park. Pablo Granadillo now in fourth position in class as they head through turns 5 and 6. A bit of
carnage there, Kale, in that corner.
On the grass.
My goodness.
But Roger Robinson makes an excellent getaway and now only has Marlon Smith and Davil Park for company. The top 4 seem to have gotten away and the field is already spreading, as I believe the Pro-Am class would have been completing their first lap. At this point in time, Kurt Moss crosses the line, a 1:33.0, followed closely by Mark Anthony Eaton and Estefano Barrera in third position.
Absolutely.
A lot of changes for position there right at the start.
Yeah, and poor old Mitch and Wallace sits 21 seconds behind the rest of the field in his class after that contact with Jaden Harrison. And he will certainly want to get the hurry up going so that he does not come into any form of contact with the BMW drivers.
It was quite unfortunate there for Jaden Harrison. Mitch and Wallace there just locking up the brakes heading into T1. I believe it was Jaden there was hit.
I'm not sure which way that panned out, but either way, so the stewards will have
And
to
it's
decide
very
how that
close
goes.
racing there
And there
between, I believe that's
well, Roger Robinson and Marlon Smith hot on the tail of one another in the AM class. All the while, positions are changing in the Pro Am class. We're trying to keep up with all of the action, folks, but there's a lot going on up and down the field. We will miss some here and there, but the top two in the Pro Am class still separated by only 7/10 of a second between Mark Anthony Eaton and Kurt Moss. And Kurt Moss doing the quickest lap of anybody, as this is lap number 2 there. Well, not number 3 there starting. They have just finished lap number 2, and the two drivers are still going closely together here, Eaton and Moss, with Estefano Barrera not too far behind as well. So we will certainly be getting some action going there. Roger Robinson seems to be stabilizing in the lead of his class. We will check back in with them later as we continue to ride on board with the action here in the Pro Am class, with Kurt Moss keeping the field at bay through 2.5 laps as we start the uphill climb in Sector 2 of this track.
And it's all going wrong for Deville Park, who was sitting in 3rd position in his class. He seems to have had some contact with Pablo Granadillo and is now falling, dropping like a fly through the order. He is now in, I believe, 7th position. Unfortunate occurrences there for Deville Park, who started so cleanly and made up so many positions in that carnage there at the start of the race. But rubbing is racing, they say, Chad.
Well, that sound like more than Robin happened there, because that position changed quite drastically for poor old Deville Park, who finds himself now 3rd to last in his class. That's about 7th or 8th position, as you mentioned. It's going to be hard to keep track of all of these positions, Kale, as a lot is happening up and down the field. Mark Anthony Eaton seems to be trying to put the pressure on Kurt Moss. He had done the quickest first sector of anybody, trying to get that fight going, as we see a little bit of a lockup there between the top 3, who have already separated themselves from the rest of their class by quite some margin there between Estefano Barrera and that is, I am not seeing the person that sits in 4th position on the timing sheet. That is so odd. But
that's Stephen Pummels in 4th position. That's what I'm seeing here on my screen.
Same, but Luis Daniel Velez seems to be ahead of Stephen Pummels based on the in-game positioning of the drivers. Not sure why Daniel Velez does not show up on the timing sheets based on what I am seeing. Jaden Harrison has gotten by both Kimani Easton at least, to move himself back up into 6th position, trying to recover his race after that initial contact with Mitch and Wallace. And I'm sure the stewards room will get an earful from both of those drivers as to what went wrong and how each will have it addressed in terms of who needs to be penalized. All the while, Roger Robinson still sits comfortably in the lead of his race, with a half a second gap to the driver behind, who is Marlon Smith, my apologies. And Marlon Smith might be looking to put some pressure on Roger Robinson here, as Kurt Moss has now taken a second out of the drivers behind in the Pro-Am class and is looking to extend his margin as we continue throughout this race. All the while, these two drivers giving it their all in the AM class, trying to ensure that they secure the top spot in their division.
And Rahul Nasir is trying to close in on the top 3, sitting in 4th position in class. He is gaining on Pablo Granadillo. The gap is about 3 seconds, there about almost 4 seconds, but his lap times are getting faster and faster. And eventually, Chad, I think Marlon is going to catch up to Roger. If it's not mistakes, it may be just that he's putting down a bit of a rapid lap right now, setting a personal best in the second sector. And Pablo will be waiting with arms wide open to snatch up a position, as we see Mark Anthony Eaton here coming under pressure from Estefano Barrera.
And some
A bit
contact
of
made
contact
there.
there.
That is where you can tell me that rubbing is racing. That was a rub. That wasn't the contact that we saw before. But these two drivers certainly going at it. And are they already catching drivers in the BMW class? This is
That's right.
the first instance of a car being lapped there. Kurt Moss already getting through. I believe that is the
Sebastian Percy.
Indeed, the BMW of Sebastian Percy, the first car to get lapped. Not having the greatest of first races in the series, Sebastian. I'm not sure if some contact has dropped him that far down the order, as he is 18 seconds away from the next car up the road, which is Ty Ventura. And as these cars are starting to hit lapped traffic, this will certainly play a role on their overall race to attack and defend based on where you are catching these cars. And it looks like they will catch a gaggle of them within the next couple of laps there, Kale.
And I know that the likes of Mark Anthony Eaton is going to be using the lap traffic to his advantage, you know, holding off the charging Estefano and only allowing him to get close when they're in that gaggle of slower cars to try and use them as a blockage. But it doesn't seem like Estefano is going to be waiting for Mark to pull that trick out of the bag. They're side by side going into turn 2. Mark is still ahead of him, but Estefano is just searching for an opportunity. Mark leaves the space, and Estefano says, "Thank you very much," but Mark is still there and keeps him on the outside. No space for him to get around. Mark is making the back of that Lancer extremely wide, all the while allowing Kurt Moss to get away, still side by side coming into turn 7. Chad, Mark utilizing all the tricks in the book here. Still side by side going uphill, Chad. Oh my goodness.
No, certainly Mark Anthony
racing.
Eaton is giving us the defense that we're used to getting from him. I mean, he seems to want to claim that title of Minister of Defense. Whenever he gets into a battle like this one, he knows exactly how to position his car to keep the driver behind, taking slower and more compromised lines, which gives him the chance to keep his car ahead. But the fight between these two has compromised their lap so drastically that Kurt Moss now finds himself 5 seconds up the road. And whilst all the while these two are fighting, it will certainly play the drivers behind them back into contention. Stephen Pommels and Jaden Harrison will certainly be looking to see how they can get back into this fight if this goes on for much longer. And
Jaden Harrison, who had fallen to the back of the grid in his class, now sitting in 5th position. He's wasting absolutely no time at all, closing in on Stephen Pommels now. You rightfully said, Chad, that this fighting here between 2nd and 3rd is only inviting 4th, 5th, and 6th into the mix, and Stephen Pommels seems to have missed a meeting with the barrier and expeditiously rushed himself into the barrier to catch up. Unfortunate stuff there for Stephen Pommels, but this just pushes Jaden Harrison up the order, now in 4th position after starting in 3rd. It's working out for some and not working out for others here at VIR.
Absolutely. And you can see him there in the background as these two continue to scrap. Eaton and Barrero having quite the battle here this evening for that final spot on the podium position. And as we are watching along here, it would be prudent for me to shout out our streaming partner Sportsmax, where we are broadcasting this event here for you here this evening, and we are getting lots of action for them to display to their audiences. This is sim racing, ladies and gentlemen. Certainly,
I think Esteban is going to go for a move, Chad.
Yes, he is,
like
and
he does down the inside into turn 1. Does he make it stick though, or will they be side by side? I think
he is ahead.
Mark is going to try and make another move here.
We will observe if he can find somewhere to put his car, but that move is now done, and Barrera clearly having a bit more pace than Mark Anthony Eaton, as he has been applying that pressure heavily throughout the last few laps. So maybe he will now start to stretch his legs to extend that gap to Mark Anthony Eaton after making that move stick finally. I mean, he is supposed to be breathing a sigh of relief at the moment, having gone through looking every which direction he could to try and make that pass. Outside, inside, around the way, over the car, anything him could have try. But it took some doing, and Eaton there losing the car a little bit. Did he manage to save it? Yes, he did, but that is certainly going to cost him in terms of time, trying to keep the pressure on Estefano Barrera.
And not only time, Chad, but in tires. We have 27 minutes left in this race, plus one lap. Mark would have been putting on a defensive show here for us earlier, but now he's in attacking. And Chad, I want to ask you, I know you have bucked heads with Mark on the track before. I want to ask you, would you rather him behind you attacking or him behind you in front of you defending?
Well, as you saw with that defense just now, I would much prefer to have him on the attack behind me, as opposed to having to be trying to make that move whilst he is defending, because he knows how to make that car
Absolutely.
about 13 feet wide to cover the distance across that track. And I don't know if this is a technique that he practices, but certainly his defense is second to none in this league, and we have seen it time and time again from him. So certainly I would prefer to have him trying to attack. There is more room for me to negotiate the situation, as opposed to his defense, which sometimes causes you, the driver, to make an error in trying to figure out where you can best attack him. But he is a crafty fellow, Mark Anthony Eden, in terms of his defense. So certainly I would prefer to be the driver in front when it comes to being on track with Mark.
Absolutely, and credit where it's due to Estefano Barrera to manage to keep close throughout. I think it was like around 5 or even more laps of hard-fought battling there between Mark and Estefano. Davil Park there having a little incident with Nicholas Donald. Both drivers picking up a bit of damage there. But we have been focusing on what's happening between Estefano and Mark. All the while, Roger Robinson has been battling with Marlon Smith. At one point, the gap was just half a second. It's now 2 seconds between the two leaders of the class. Roger Robinson sitting quite comfortably out in P1 in his class, and the likes of Marlon doing everything he can to catch up to him. The gap is also getting smaller and smaller to Pablo Granadillo behind him, and Rahul Nasir cutting down that 4-second gap to now 1 second behind Pablo Granadillo. Rahul Nasir here seems to getting it right this lap around. As he comes across the line, Pablo in front of him would have done a 1:30 dead. Rahul Nasir does a 1:29.7, 3/10 faster than the driver ahead. So it seems as though as the fuel does burn off and the track gets a bit more grippy, Rahul Nasir is finding just a bit more time, taking advantage of the dynamics of that BMW M2.
Absolutely, and the other factor you mentioned earlier, Kale, is tires. Who has managed to preserve their tires the best possible way to get to this stage of the race, because we're almost at the halfway mark and there is no mandatory pit stop. So these drivers will certainly be pushing on this set of tires throughout the entirety of this race. So it is about managing your pace so that you're not doing too much harm to your tires lap in, lap out, in order to get to the end and still have some pace left in the tires when you get towards the latter stages of the race, because you could find yourself leading this race but no tires left, and that will certainly leave you a sitting duck if these drivers manage to stay close enough throughout the remainder of throughout the duration of this race. My apologies.
And speaking of pace, Chad, Jaden Harrison matching the race leader in the last lap, a 1:26.9 from Kurt, a 1:26.9 from Jaden. He is absolutely hammering it. He has gotten that gap down to 3 seconds behind Mark Anthony Eaton now. In a few laps time, Chad, we may see Mark having to put on another defensive showcase as Jaden Harrison is wasting absolutely no time. He is running, he's utilizing those tires to the fullest extent. We may see how that affects him towards the latter stages of this race, but knowing Jaden, he's going to push and take those tires for every ounce of grip that they have.
Absolutely.
So we will see how this battle unfolds.
And they are certainly finding themselves coming together sooner rather than later. And I mean, it seems to be a recurring theme with these two. They just always seem to find each other on track, and it always produces some brilliant fighting between the two of them. They claim there is no rivalry there, but with the amount of times that they find themselves together on track, and the defense and offense that goes into them attacking each other, certainly I think these two drivers have, if not a rivalry, certainly some intense battles time and time again.
More than just a rivalry, Chad. These two drivers do respect each other to the utmost extent, you know, having spent so much time together battling each other throughout the peak performance series. They know each other's tricks inside and out, and that is why I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but there's a smile on my face because I am anticipating the sparks that will fly when Jaden does eventually catch up to Mark Anthony. Kurt Moss sitting pretty now out in first position, the gap behind him 4 seconds. He is not pushing anymore. His lap times are indicating that he's just keeping things under control. Quote unquote damage limitation as Mark Anthony now in the pits. 20 minutes left to go, just over half distance through this race. And
what do you
Mark
make of this
pits?
strategy, Kale? Maybe Mark thinking fresh tires might serve him better in terms of the fight. He does emerge ahead of Mitch and Wallace and will have fresh rubber to do quicker lap times, or maybe he just thought the tires would not take him to the end of the race, and so he has made a call to take a pit stop. And I guess what we will do now is observe the lap times that he posts going forward, having taken that pit stop, and would now find himself in 7th position from 3rd, maybe also thinking about the potential battle with Jaden and not thinking he has the tire life to put up the adequate fight with Jaden Harrison there, and decided that maybe fresh rubber is the way to go. We will see if anybody else makes that call, but certainly we will keep an eye on Mark Anthony Eaton's lap time to see if that call was the right call, as it looks like Estefano Barrero might be... my apologies. The timing sheets came up to say that he was heading to the pits, but he does not seem to have done so, as...
It's certainly a gamble there from Mark's end, deciding to take that pit stop, but we will see if others follow his strategy. And I'm glad you mentioned it, because the first thing that came to my mind is that Mark would have seen Jaden time, the gap closing between them, and rather than, you know, do some slower lap times and basically just wait for Jaden to catch him and fight him and lose even more time, he decided to take a pit stop. But will it be worth it though? Falling to the near back of the grid. I'm not even seeing him on the timing sheet anymore. Oh no, there he is, still in 6th position. Falling to near the back of his class. We'll see if he is able to put in the lap times to capitalize on those fresher tires. But there's a bit of an incident there between Michelle Wallace and a driver in the AM class.
I'm not sure what happened there. The timing chart kind of gave us a little bit of a whirly-dirly. It showed Kurt Moss dropping down to 4th position.
Can confirm he is still there in first position.
No, I got quite concerned for a moment. I was wondering if he too made the call to dive into the pits, but no. Still sitting pretty in first position, about 3.5 seconds clear of Estefano Barrero. Jaden Harrison now driving a very lonely race. Well, lonely in terms of his class, but he will certainly have drivers to go by in terms of the amateur class of drivers. So
Yes, and there's quite a group of them here going up through up the straight into turn 7 to head up the hill. I think it's going to be Jaden Harrison that catches them now going up through this fast uphill section. Hopefully no one gets impeded, but at the same time the drivers are racing there in the AM class, and they will see the faster drivers in the Pro-Am class as an obstacle. They're not going to be saying, "Oh yes, please come past me." No, they're racing. You're in my way. I'm trying to make up positions, and you in your faster car with your bigger wing and your more aerodynamics, like get your own racetrack. But Jaden Harrison, I'm sure, will utilize all his racing expertise to navigate this minefield of BMW M2 cars as we see some action going on here down into turn 1. Rahul Nasir is in the box seat to witness Pablo Granadillo make a move on Marlon Smith. Barely anything between these two. They are nip and tuck heading into turn 3, utilizing all of the exit there on the entry into turns 5 and 6.
yeah,
Granadillo there not giving an inch, sticking to that rear bumper of Marlon Smith, now side by side going up into turn 7. Chad, will Rahul try and capitalize on this movement here as they go up into the right-hander?
Ooh, and there's some runoff
like Marlon just got it a bit wrong there, running a bit wide, and Pablo there taking the inside line, being conservative, allows Rahul Nasir to get 2 in 1. The
My
Canadian
goodness.
hanging back. It was the smart thing to do, and he will be happy with that move there, gaining 2 positions in 1 corner.
Absolutely, and Stephen Pommel seems to have had an incident there on track, finds himself tumbling down the order whilst we are riding on board with the drivers ahead. But all the while, I'm not sure if this is a lap traffic playing Estefano Barrera back into contention, but he is closing the gap to Kurt Moss quite rapidly, and as Kurt Moss is trying to overtake the same trio that we were just riding on board with, that will play a part in their battle as well as the battle with Estefano Barrero, as Kurt Moss is now sandwiched between these rivals, and Estefano is also coming right back into contention here as he tries to make a move to get by the BMWs, and this is looking quite intense in terms of figuring out where on track you can get by these cars, and it has brought the gap right down to 7/10 of a second basically between the two drivers holding the top 2 spots in this race here this evening, and they still have one more car to clear. We will see who that goes in favor of, whether it favors Estefano Barrera or Kurt Moss, as they are
right now. It's definitely favoring Estefano, as Kurt got held up in a very fast right-hander there. It's now the gap down to 4/10 between Kurt Moss and Estefano Barrera, but Kurt has been just managing this race, not pushing on those tires. He has a lot more life left in those tires, and I definitely think we're going to see him pull another gap on Estefano. Estefano is very quick, but Kurt put it on pole and has been in first position for this entire race. Estefano now sitting in the slipstream, may want to capitalize, jump at the chance, the opportunity to overtake Kurt Moss, but he thinks better of it, taking an alternative line there into turn 1, trying to get a bit of a switchback, get a better run on the exit of turn 1, heading into turn 2. The gap is widening already now for almost 4/10 now between them. We'll see if
as
this
Kimani Eastman, the next man to take a pit stop here, giving Mark Anthony Eaton back the 5th position. Well, giving Mark Anthony Eaton 5th position, but the 2 drivers ahead still glued together. Kale, Estefano not giving up on that charge just yet. He is right with Kurt Moss as they start to climb up the hill, and certainly I think Estefano has found some pace here, and is taking that fight to Kurt. Maybe Kurt doing a little bit of tire preservation at this stage of the game, realizing that the drivers behind are taking pit stops in order to ensure that they can make it to the end, as Mark Anthony Eaton in 5th position is doing 126.1s, whereas Kurt's last lap was a 128.7. So, well, sorry, Mark's last lap was a 126.8, so almost 2 seconds over that lap, but that could also be in part due to the lap traffic. However, Mark Anthony
Well, let's see what's
is quicker than anyone else in his class at the moment, having taken that pit stop. So we will continue to observe as Barrera is trying to put that pressure on Kurt Moss. There's a bit of contact there. Absolutely. And these two drivers are going at it, and we will see if it's another fight like the one he had with Mark Anthony Eaton, where Kurt Moss is going to have to defend for their life, or if Kurt Moss will just simply put the hammer down and extend this gap away from Estefano Barrero.
Well, the legend of the speed of Kurt Moss is an international one. I know the Venezuelans will have their fingers crossed for their driver Estefano Barrera, who is having an amazing drive out here tonight at VIR, to see if he can get past Kurt and take possibly even the first win of this series. Kurt, and again, coming up to the class here, heading into another crucial section of the track. Estefano there able to get that car rotated and has got a better exit than Kurt, and we know how powerful the slipstream is heading onto the start finish straight here. If Estefano can get a run, he may have an opportunity at a move here, heading down the start finish straight. He is neatly tucked into that slipstream, Chad, heading down into the first corner as they come around the first kink. Estefano closer than he's been before. We may see contact again as they did in the last lap into the first corner. Estefano on the outside. They're positioning his car perfectly, but Estefano seems to be able to get a run as they come back now into turn 2. Estefano there trying to find a way past, but nothing doing. Kurt Moss making that car 15 feet wide, even wider than Mark's, as they head into turn 3 now. Estefano will have to wheel and come again. A defensive masterclass there from Kurt Moss.
There is a smile 10 feet wide across my face, almost as wide as Kurt Moss's car is at the moment, because he certainly positioned that car to ensure that Barrera had nowhere to look in terms of trying to make that move. But these two cars look glued together, Cale, through this section of the track, as there is nothing to separate them at the moment. And I'm sure Barrera will be thinking, what do I do next? He will be throwing everything, and maybe even including the kitchen sink, at this in trying to get this move done, as these two drivers look to be matching pace, corner for corner, straight in. I mean, I'm lost for words at this stage of the game. This fight is rather intense for the top spot here in this, or round 1 of the multi-class championship, and nothing to separate them as Barrera ahead
making a move
on the outside, and he looks to have gotten it done. A little bit of contact there made between these two drivers, and Kurt Moss seems to have yielded that position at that point, and maybe he thinks, I'll be the hunter instead of the hunted, and see how that works out.
And it's one of his favorite tactics. I've heard him testify to it. Kurt Moss will be 10. He will be a second faster than the first in front of him, but stay right on that bumper to pressure them into making their own mistake. Kurt Moss is a wily racing character. He utilizes the mentals even more than the raw talent that he has, and he seems to be just backing off a bit, maybe even the tires giving way there, or he thought better of being so close to the driver ahead of him going up through this twisty section here. The M2 class driver there letting them by. Maybe he even might be coming into the pits, we never know. We saw Kimani Eastman and Mark Anthony take a pit stop. Mark now back up into 5th position, but we'll see how that battle unfolds.
Quite close to Daniel Velas there is Mark Anthony Eaton, so maybe maybe the strategy was the correct one. He is 2 seconds a lap quicker than anybody else on track at the moment, with the exception of Stephen Pommels, who maybe has also taken a pit stop. And we will continue to watch as Mark Anthony Eaton will now put some pressure on Daniel Velez to try and take that position. Kurt Moss 1.5 seconds back from Estefano Barrera, not yet mounting the charge that we expected him to mount, but Eaton looks to be able to get this move done quite swiftly, I think, if given the pace difference between these two drivers. And so we will see where Mark decides to make this move, and he is looking outside at the moment, heading into and he gets pushed a little wide there, but I think that's respectful. These two drivers going side by side,
both giving each other ample space as Mark does take it down the inside. The outside becomes the inside, Chad, and that's a beautiful overtake. I think that's the best overtake I've seen so far in this race. Mark really giving us a show here at VIR. He made neat work of Velez there into turn 6, and now will charge after Jaden Harrison. But Chad, let's not forget about the men in the BMW M2. Rahul Nasir has been holding off Marlon Smith and Pablo Granadillo, but a bit of contact between Ty Ventura and Granadillo. Not sure what happened there, but as we say, rubbing is racing. It looks as though the gap is opening between Rahul and Marlon, but actually it's not. Marlon is only half a second behind Rahul. It is Granadillo that has really lost out there. He was only a second behind Marlon Smith, sitting in second position, but now seems to be losing a bit of pace after that incident with Ty Ventura. And further down the field, further down the order in the M2 class, it's all fairly standard stuff. Not many overtakes happening there. Ruben Espinosa sitting in, I believe, 4th position.
That is 5th position fifth for Ruben Espinosa, correct.
Followed by Davil Park there. So it's just maintaining their positions there. Maybe they are holding out and waiting until the last moments of the race to make their move.
And while we have been riding on board with the M2 drivers here, Kale, Estefano Barrera has opened that gap to Kurt Moss to almost 3.6 seconds, and I'm not sure if maybe Kurt Moss's tire life has gone away from him completely, but Barrera looks to be sitting comfortably in the lead of this race now, with about 5 minutes to go, plus an extra lap when time does elapse. So not much racing left. If there is any charge to be mounted, now would be the time to do so. I think whilst Mark Anthony Eaton is lapping that much faster than Jaden Harrison, his last lap 1.5 seconds quicker than Jaden, I don't think he will have time to get right back into that fight with Jaden Harrison to take advantage of the fresher rubber. There is about 7 seconds between them at the moment, and that would require about 4-ish laps for Mark Anthony Eaton to close that gap down to a margin where he could mount that fight to Jaden.
But Chad, let's not forget about the BMW M2 drivers being lapped. We saw how it ruined Kurt's race after being held up by the AM class drivers and allowing Estefano Barrera to just reel him in. Mark may see something similar here, but let's see how it unfolds.
Absolutely, and we're seeing actually how close they are. You can see Jaden Harrison up in the distance there, looking to lap a few cars himself, whilst Mark Anthony Eaton is coming through. The gap is actually narrowing quicker than I thought. It is now 5 seconds, so you might have been right, Kale. That lap traffic will play a role here. It depends on where these drivers catch those cars to get by, in terms of how they will shape out in this particular section. And the gap is still closing. It is now just about 4 seconds, so maybe there is time for Mark Anthony Eaton to mount a charge here at Jaden Harrison with 3 minutes to go, and there is a lap after time elapses, so he might just be on the cusp of being able to take that fight to Jaden, and maybe Mark's strategy did pan out as he expected it, because he is now back in that fight for third position, which is the position he was in when he went into the pits. So,
and he's going to keep getting faster, Chad. He's on pressure tires, and the fuel burn, the fuel load is only getting less and less. I am expecting him to even possibly snatch that fastest lap away from Kurt Moss, the fastest lap now being a 125.9. Mark Anthony Eaton's last lap a 127.9, but his own fastest lap a 126.1. Just 2 tenths between them in terms of fastest lap, and Mark here with clear air ahead of him will definitely be pushing and giving it his all as we come down into the dying moments of this race. 2.25 minutes left plus 1 lap. It's still anyone's race. We saw Kurt Moss's tires drop off a cliff.
absolutely.
We may see the very same thing happen to Jaden
2
and
seconds
Estefano.
now. The gap between these two drivers, 2.4 seconds, and that is coming down a lot faster than we thought. Jaden's last lap a 130.5. Mark's last lap, well, Mark is coming up to start finish now, and we will see what that time is. It was a 127.5, so 2 seconds in it between these two drivers in the last lap. Mark catching Jaden at a rate of 2 seconds a lap, so by the end of this lap he could be right there with Jaden Harrison to mount the fight for the final spot on the podium, as long as these lap cars do not cause him too much headache, and it looks like they might be doing so as he gets by. I'm not sure who that is, but he gets by, and there is now nobody in between them. Jaden Harrison needing one more car to separate them to maybe hold on to that position. The gap now 1.5-ish seconds. It is coming down rapidly, Cale. These two drivers will find themselves together on track, and I mean, this continues the argument. They are just like magnets. They just find each other. It doesn't matter which way you split it. Jaden managed to fight back to close the gap to Mark. Mark took a pit stop and still finds himself here with the upper hand.
And I think this is exactly what Mark wanted. Rather than being the one that is going to be chased, he gets to be the aggressor. Even though he's gonna have one last lap to do it. Well, one last lap plus another lap to get it done. He is now 0.5, half a second behind Jaden Harrison on much fresher tires. I think this strategy has played right into Mark's hands. He was able to think about the race, not only in the moment, but a lot of forward thinking, and the strategy is definitely paying off as we see him closing in ever more on Jaden Harrison. Jaden's going to have to defend with all his might here to keep the speedy Mark Anthony behind, and Jaden seems to just be giving him the elbow there, but he's not able to keep that car as planted as Mark is through these corners. Mark is absolutely applying the pressure, almost side by side there, going through turns 5 and 6. Jaden still ahead of Mark, coming up into turn 7. Will he go for a dive down the inside? No, he does not. He thinks better of it, turning up the hill now. He's definitely going to be gaining on Jaden. He may want to rethink where he positions his car now, heading up to here. It's possibly the best move for him would be to wait until he comes around to the final 2 corners to really utilize that slipstream. But I suppose he'd want to utilize his advantage of having the fresher tires in the corners, but Jaden is not going to take it lying down at all, Chad.
Absolutely not, and this fight continues. I think we are now starting the final lap, so Mark has 1 lap to get it done, and looks like he gets a better drive out of the final corner. Jaden Harrison trying to close the door, but does not have the grip or the pace to do so, and Mark Anthony Eaton, it's a drag race down to turn 1, and Mark has
Jaden
gotten
trying
ahead.
to switch back to the inside, Chad. It's not working. He switches back to the outside, tries to brake late and go around the outside on the old tires. Jaden trying his very best here, but the fresher tires with the less fuel, I don't think there's any way that Jaden could have defended that any better, and the outcome remains the same, Chad. Mark Anthony, the strategy played off, and he is comfortably now, I believe, in 3rd position. Sorry to cut you there. Oh my goodness.
Ouch, and Jaden Harrison lost it in that moment.
Oh no.
Oh my goodness, probably got a little bit flustered there seeing Mark Anthony Eaton take that position from him. and trying to figure out how to drive the car back into contention. But that is rather unfortunate there for Jaden Harrison. Mark Anthony Eaton played this one to perfection in terms of his strategy and getting back into the race. I questioned the decision when he went into the pits. I'm not gonna lie, but overall he paid it off as Estefano Barrera crosses the line to take the victory here in round 1 of our multi-class series. Kurt Moss will come home in second, and Mark Anthony Eaton, having played the strategy very, very brilliantly here this afternoon, will come home
Chad,
to take third.
Let's not forget about the M2 class. Roger Robinson from the very start has been leading and crosses the line to take the win for his class. Rahul Nasir capitalizing on an incident with his fellow drivers, finishes in P2 as well. Rahul and Marlon Smith, who started in 5th, takes the 3rd spot. Pablo Granadillo had an incident there with Ruben Espinosa and fell down into 5th, but I think managed to get back that position there. It was really popping off in the AM class there towards the end. We didn't get to see it, but an amazing drive from all the drivers here today at VIR. I believe this was some of the most exciting, some of the closest racing I've seen in quite a while there, Chad. Excellent driving from all drivers all around.
This was brilliant racing up and down the field. The M2 class did their thing. The Pro-Am class certainly provided us some brilliant racing action. Estefano Barrera hunting down Kurt Moss towards the latter stages of that race. I don't know where he found that pace from on those old tires, but certainly made it work. Not what I expected to see from Kurt Moss there, taking that 2nd position, and Mark Anthony Eaton playing that strategy ever so brilliantly managed to come home in 3rd position. And I believe we will be talking to Mark Anthony Eaton here now, following the race. Mark, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
I mean, bold call there, sir, in terms of that strategy. Talk us through what you saw, why you decided to take that pit stop at that stage of the game.
After Estefano passed me, I kind of realized I didn't really have the race pace or the tire management to kind of keep up with them. So I kind of just took a gamble to see if they would. So it's like I was hoping they'd pit. So when I realized that the top 3 wasn't gonna pit, I was like, all right, I'm gonna have to push a lot harder than I was planning. But I got back to where I pitted from, so I'm happy with that. Jaden did a really good piece of defense to try and hold me up, but eventually I got by him. But yeah.
I mean, that was brilliant racecraft. I see you made the decision to be the hunter rather than the hunted. Talk us through the fight back to get back to that battle for the final podium position.
Yeah. When I pit, I actually saw a group of the BMW cars kind of in front of us. So I was like, I didn't really want to get into a scrap with them and waste the tires even more. So I pit and just pushed as hard as I could. Everybody in the Lancer class kind of pit right about when I caught up with them, so it wasn't really much fighting. Just getting by. I think it was Daniel and Jaden was really the only fighting I had to do. Majority of it was just trying to do as many hot laps as possible.
Well, brilliant call, sir, and congratulations on taking the final podium position with that strategy. And we look forward to seeing what you will do in the remainder of this series. Okay, so that was Mark Anthony Eaton, or 3rd place finisher, having pitted, was the first driver to make that call and dived into the pits and made that strategy work. We will be, let's see who we will be talking to next. I will allow you to ask the questions, Kale. It is Kurt Moss, or 2nd place finisher.
Okay.
Kurt, are you there?
What's good?
First things first, congratulations on taking the second spot on the podium for our first round in the multi-class series. From the very beginning, it seems like you had it all sewn up, but things changed in the throughout that race. Walk us through your race first.
Well, basically, not I don't know if he would have had the pace to catch me at the end without the traffic, but I was trying to maintain a 4 second gap that I had on Estefano, and but this is the what you have to deal with multi-class race, and I came upon cars at some very bad spots, and within like a few seconds, less than a half a lap, he was on my tail without even trying. So I think even that helped him to not hurt his tires anymore, more than he should. And after he got past me, man, I had nothing for him. My tires were done.
That was, I want to call it unfortunate, but that was just the racing there. Estefano getting a bit lucky with where you guys caught the traffic. But we saw an absolutely immaculate defense from you there, Kurt. I believe this would have been the first time, your first time battling with Estefano Barrera coming from the Sim Racing Venezuela org. What are your thoughts? Did you enjoy that little battle there?
Of course, I'm always down for good racing, man. Good, clean racing. That's even if I come second, as long as it's good and clean, I have no issues with it, bro. So I welcome it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you did finish. You said after he passed, he didn't have anything to respond with, and that's a first. That's a first coming from you, Kurt. But it was excellent racing. We had Chad and myself had so much to talk about. You and Estefano there giving us the race of a lifetime there. So congrats again, and we look forward to seeing you continue to battle it out on the track in the upcoming races here in the multi-class series.
Yeah, man. Give thanks always, man, and it was fun.
All right, thanks, Kurt. So now the man who finished on pole, I am not seeing him in the open. He's not. It doesn't seem to be available. I'll see if I can get.
Well, we can talk to Roger Robinson in the interim, who is already here in the chat with us. The winner of the M2 class. Roger, are you with us?
Yes, I am. I'm here.
Well, congratulations, sir, on taking the victory in your class. That must have been quite the race to navigate. Let us know your thoughts.
Yeah, coming from my season with Artito, I came second in the championship, so I was a bit disappointed. Today was, more of a proof to myself. Try to limit the mistakes and keep a cool head and, finish the race.
Absolutely, and well done on taking that victory. So you had to navigate not only the battle with the cars behind you, but also the other class going by. How did that affect your race, and how did you plan for the eventuality of being lapped by those cars?
Yeah, I'm usually the one to be in the faster class. So this was my first time, I have to navigate the Lancer class, faster than I was. When I tried to pull, a gap between the second place. I did, but I think I lost concentration when I saw Kurt and Estefano, battling out for first place. They were really close, and I wanted not to impede them. So I was hoping that I could catch them at a good part of the track so I can let them pass. But I think when I saw them, I kind of panicked a bit and I lost momentum. But after they passed, then I tried to regain focus and I could have pulled ahead again and finished the race.
Well, overall, a very good race from you, leading from start to finish, basically. So overall, we look forward to what you will do in the remainder of this series, and we wish you all the luck, sir.
All right, thank you.
Okay, that was Roger Robinson. Oh, sorry, Kale, you had something to add?
Oh, no. I was going to move on to Raul.
Right, so that was Roger Robinson, winner of the M2 class. Next up, we will be talking to Rahul Nazir, and Kale can take that interview with Mr. Nazir.
Yes, finishing second in the M2 class. Rahul Nasir, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
First things, congratulations on that finish there, taking the second spot on the podium in your class. Wow. That was quite the race for you there. I already know what my highlight of your race was, but I'm going to ask you, can you walk us through your race? How was it?
All right. Yeah, it was a great race. The start was not the best of starts that I've ever done. Had a great launch, already put myself up into P2, and then realized this BMW does not brake. And I was holding the brakes for dear life, and unfortunately, I kind of just went straight instead of turning for turn one. Luckily, I didn't kill anyone, so I'm happy with that. But then after, it was just, you know what? Head down. We got 40 minutes to bring this back up. I know I have the pace to potentially get a podium, so that was the goal. And then eventually I did see, cars battling ahead of me, and then as soon as I saw P3 and P2 I think come together, that was like the golden opportunity to just slide right through, got them both, and then it was just head down. We had about 20 minutes to get to the leader, and it was a hard fought battle, including the guys coming up behind us, the faster class catching us up on some of the most awkward parts of the track. So it was really difficult to let them through, but luckily I didn't harm any of their races. I did see some lovely battles going on with them as well. But we unfortunately did finish second, but man, I'll take it. It's a great start to this championship, and I can't wait to see what's next.
Yeah, you're definitely going to be one to watch. Capitalizing, opportunistic move there between, I believe it was Pablo Granadillo and Marlon. They're just getting a bit too close for comfort, heading into turn 7, and you just slip through there. Oh my goodness, 2-in-1. That was a beautiful move, Rahul. I think that was the move of the race in my books. But a 40-minute race, that mentality is exactly what we want to see here in the Jsra races. And it was, fun watching you guys, navigate the racetrack and each other and the faster class. So excellent racing there from you. Put on an excellent show for us. Gave myself and Chad lots to comment about.
Absolutely.
And congratulations on this first race podium.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We're going for the gold.
That's exactly what we want to hear.
Good luck with that, sir. We look forward to seeing the remainder of the races and what you bring to the table.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, this rivalry is just getting started.
You heard
I like
it,
the
folks.
enthusiasm. I love it.
You heard it straight from the horse's mouth.
Noted.
Roger Robinson there with a response.
It's war.
Oh, I like this. Let's go.
It's definitely heating up, Chad. We're gonna see a lot more close racing here between the drivers. At the next time out, they have mastered VIR, and they will be moving on to, I believe, let me quickly double check where they'll be moving on to next. Starting at VIR, they'll be heading to Oran Park next time out. So we'll see how the drivers get acclimated to that track, and it's going to be a lot more. As I say, it's going to be war. It's going to be war. So
absolutely,
I'm looking forward to that.
As am I, Kale, as am I, and it was great fun calling the action here this evening. Lots of action to cover on the track, and certainly we couldn't keep up with all of it, but we will try our best to catch as much of it as we can. And once again, thank you to our streaming partner Sportsmax for sharing this broadcast with us here this evening. We were live on the Sportsmax app whilst we were streaming here on our own channels. But certainly a great opening round, and we look forward to seeing what comes next. Oran Park, I believe, is where you said we shall be, and so I look forward to seeing the action provided then. Lots of rivalries developing, lots of action to see unfold. Any final thoughts to share with our viewers, Kale?
I am still trying to process it all. There were so many moves, so many battles, and this is exactly what we expected from this our first outing here with a multi-class series. We have international drivers as well coming in from Venezuela, battling it out on track. With our Jamaican drivers, we have drivers all over the world. Rahul himself, hailing from Canada, Roger Robinson racing from Singapore. It's good to see the motorsport bug. It's spreading, and the talent is absolutely amazing. And I'm expecting to see a lot more close racing, a lot more close battles on track. And I believe our viewers will be looking forward to it as much as I am.
Absolutely, and you've said it all there. I mean, lots of action this time out, and we will certainly get more of it in a week's time when we come back for round 2 at Oran Park here next Saturday at the JSRA. And we will certainly be excited to call the action once more, and hopefully we get the same level of brilliance that we got here this week. So thank you again to all the viewers for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.